Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Haven't done that shit in fucking ages, so here we go. Today, we're talking about Harry Styles because it's new and marketable. No, genuinely, I really like Harry Styles' music. I'll just let the cat out of the bag. I think incredibly consistent work. I heard the new record about 40 minutes ago, so I am in tip-top shape. Alex, how are you feeling coming into Harold's catalog here?
Um, I am feeling enthusiastic and so damn confused. Um, this I've always liked his music. I have a lot of nostalgia for his first like couple records, especially the first one, which we'll talk about. But um, like I've always liked his work, and I don't know that I came away from this liking his music more in kind of an interesting way. Like I like all these albums. Like all these albums are a decent bit. I don't know that anything would stand up to like the very top of like late 2010s, early mid 2020s pop, but I think he's consistent and he also changes things up from record to record. Like I wouldn't confuse any of these albums for each other. So he's very interesting to talk about and I appreciate that, but the fact that there are things that I appreciate about all four of these records means that trying to make any sort of a ranking was a logistical nightmare. Like normally with these videos, when we like collaborate together, usually I'm going off of like one listen or like a most recent listen, and usually not more than that. I've heard all these records multiple times over the last 3 days. We're recording this 2 days after his 2025 or 2026 record came out. So like I've heard all these a couple times because like I needed to like collect my thoughts because it's a mess. And this more than any other ranking I think that we've done, this is very subject to change over time.
I was not expecting to have quite as much struggle with putting together the Harry Styles list as I was compared to the Nickelback one. It is a staggering difference in how difficult it was to rank these two discographies, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right,
Well, and just an upward tick in quality, right? Like
for sure.
very glad that, it took almost a year for us to record another video, but I'm glad that we're doing like Harry Styles and not like Creed or something. Just continuing that trend of butt rock from the 90s and aughts.
For what it's worth, I think the plan was Sabrina Carpenter initially, so we were always going and we were always treading in this direction.
That's
It was
true.
just a matter of when.
That's true.
Alrighty. Next, we'll do like fucking Marina or something. I don't know.
I fuck with Marina. I like the that first record or what it is. I like that one a good bit.
It's decent. The new record wasn't great, but who cares? All right. Well, I suppose let's get into this daunting task, surprisingly, on the catalog. So, were you wanting to start or was it me? I forgot already.
That's all good. I can
All right,
start, I guess.
that works.
Um, and like I said, like this is all subject to change. But I said at the beginning, or I said when we were talking before the episode that, I had an idea of how I thought this ranking was going to go, and it did not go that way at all. And the reason why is because my number four is the self-titled debut record, which I was convinced was going to be my number one. And the reason for that is I have a really difficult time being objective about that record. It came out in like April 2017, um, my freshman year of college. So like I remember listening to it on release day. I had another friend who was like into One Direction and that sort of thing. Not like a super fan, but like appreciated like the talent there because there was talent there for sure. It was obvious, but and he was like, "Oh my God, Harry Styles did this cool solo record, and it sounds like a '60s, '70s rock record or something." And it sounded enticing, and I really, really liked it at the time, and I still do really like it. Um, it's very impressive, in the context of how when it was released, because again, I know people understood that there was talent in One Direction, or at least some people did, but I don't think people expected a record this mature and this organic from Styles or from any of them. Um, so it works really well in that context. I hear a lot of obviously 70s rock influence. I hear Paul McCartney in this for sure. I hear Jeff Buckley in what he's trying to do in certain parts. Not to say he's on that level vocally, but he's definitely capturing some of that like 90s singer-songwriter rock artist tries to record in a 70s style vibe, which is Jeff Buckley's whole bit. Um, there's some of my favorite Harry Styles songs are on this record. I Sign of the Times is one that I go back and forth on a little bit. I will say sometimes it's one of my favorite Harry songs. It's kind of this like fusion between Champagne Supernova and Tiny Dancer. It's really epic. And I think the production really lets what at its core, I don't think is like that much of a song really open up. I really like the kind of chorus voices. There might be some synths as well that are entering in that bridge section. I think that's really cool. And it's one of his best vocals probably ever. The reason I say I'm not always into it is because I do sometimes, like on this most recent listen, I was like, I don't know how much substance there is here. It's a song that sounds more epic than maybe it actually is at its core. But in any case, for the most part, I really, really like it. Um, the problem with this record and the reason why I have it at my bottom is I can't deny the fact that this, I think, is his least consistent album, just from a track quality standpoint. Um, I like that he tried to do a rock album, and I like that some of the rock tracks on here have a genuine like rawness and like improvisational energy to them. I mean, maybe they were well rehearsed, but it doesn't necessarily sound like it. Um, and I know that not all the tracks are going to be everyone's cup of tea, and sometimes they're not my cup of tea. They have those weird, like abrasive sampling techniques on Carolina that sometimes I really like, and sometimes I'm like, God, this is kind of annoying. Um, Kiwi, kind of fun, not always in the mood for that, raunchiness, I suppose. And this album has what I think is his worst song. I don't like Woman at all. Um, I like I want to understand what inspired the hook of that song because I don't get it. I don't get where it's supposed to be coming from. That whole very stilted woman, woman, la 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 la. What the fuck? So I don't know. I'm not into that one for the most part. But as I said, when this record hits, especially on those slow songs, it really hits. Love Two Ghosts. Love that kind of simple guitar lick that Harry's playing there. Sweet Creature. It's him trying to do Blackbird. It's not as good as Blackbird, but it works really, really fucking well. And I love Ever Since New York. That's a contender for my favorite Harry song. I just think the dynamics of it work really well. I love that kind of tom drum beat there. Um, the harmonies in the chorus, it sounds amazing. I think that's one of the more kind of Buckley-esque moments on the record. So I love a lot of this album, but when I'm comparing it with everything else here, I don't know. I don't think the consistency's there. And if I'm being honest with myself, when I do put this record on, I don't usually listen to it all the way through. I usually skip a lot of the tracks on the back half of the record. So I don't know. At least for the time being, it's my bottom. It's subject to change, I'm sure. And this is still probably always going to be the record I have the most emotional connection with as far as Harry's catalog. But, you know, if I'm thinking about like consistency from a song to song standpoint and how it works as an overall listen, I don't know. I think the bottom is where it lives for now. So self-titled Harry Styles record. At the bottom, not what I expected, and my entire perception of the world has been wrecked and altered because of that.
And fucking Harry, god damn it, switching people up like this. What the hell? All right.
Asshole.
So, a complete prick. All right. So I still have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. So I have a very clear top two. And wow, you can definitely see that it's getting dark outside. That's really funny, but we're gonna let it ride because I don't care. All right. So number four, fuck me. I think I'm going with the new one. As you can tell, I'm very confident in this, and I don't know what to make of this album except for that I think it's very good because I think everything Harry has made is very good. This entire discography sits at 4 stars for me. I think these are all incredibly consistent, incredibly well, maybe not consistent. We'll get there. We'll get to the debut. Um, I think all of these records have consistently strong moments of greatness. However, I also think they're all just very strange to me. It's just like none of them are quite there for greatness, but they're all like tickling. They're all right there, you know? It's so weird because they're just such good, such compelling listens. I especially really like the new styles that are tested with here. However, this one does lean a bit more inherently electronic with its sounds, I think. I almost got weird touches of like how Bon Iver does productions at spots, which might be a bit strange on certain tracks, but I thought I heard it. I don't know. I've heard this record once. Um, I think it starts out really well with Aperture. I think American Girls is fun. Ultimately, I do think it meanders a bit, but it's still consistently solid. I think Dance No More is another really fun one. I think it ends really well. I think it starts really well, but I do think in the middle it gets maybe a bit jumbled up, a bit substandard to his quality, which is still very good though, so who cares? It is a I don't know. It is a tough record for me to discuss. This whole catalog is a tough thing to discuss because it's all just so close. Legitimately, I think all of these records are like 8.6, 8.7 out of 10s. They are decimal points away from each other. It is razor thin margins. And I would be lying if I said it probably isn't the bottom just due to lack of familiarity at this point. So it is what it is. What the hell's the name of this thing again? Kiss All the Time, Disco Occasionally is at my bottom at 4 stars. It is very good.
Fair enough. I feel like you're obligated to add like the punctuation anytime you say the album title, Kiss All the Time, period, disco, comma, occasionally, period. Because I mean, he makes a point of adding the punctuation, so apparently it's important to him. Harry Styles grammar Nazi question mark. Anyways, um, let's keep talking about the new one because it's my number three. Um, yeah, I uh, it it's interesting. It's so interesting to talk about this one and the debut back to back because yeah, they kind of sound like they're made by the same artist. Like it's still recognizably Harry Styles, but they're very different approaches. And this goes back to what I like about him as an artist. It's that his stuff is always distinctly pop in some way, but the form of pop that it is changes from album to album. And you can tell that it's well crafted and well executed, and whatever kind of special interest he has that he's applying to these records, he's really dove headfirst into and really taken on. Um, this record, I guess, supposedly was inspired by like LCD Sound System, and yeah, you can hear that. Um, Comparing to Harry's House, this record has a darker sound than that album, without some of the same. It's more uncompromising, I would say. In fact, I would say this is his most uncompromised work to date. Um, I mean, I think the succinct way of saying it is that this is his club record. It feels like he is not putting the focus on the songwriting in the same way and is more so focused on creating atmosphere, creating beats, creating songs that work in that kind of club atmosphere. There's a very kind of like Eastern Europe, like thinking about like French and German, like electronic music influence here. To call out Aperture, which I think is probably the best song on here. It has that sort of glassy, uncomfortable sound that gives vibes of like the late 70s stuff that was happening in Germany, like thinking about like Kraftwerk a little bit. Um, some of the stuff Bowie was experimenting with in the Berlin era, like there's some of that kind of energy to what he's going for. And again, just kind of compartmentalized into this very danceable, chart-oriented sound. Um, there's still a lot of bops on this record. Ready, Steady, Go was a lot of fun. Dance No More. I definitely get Daft Punk vibes from that track in particular. Um, so really like those ones. American Girls, like you mentioned, is awesome. Love the kind of military drum loops with the kind of 8-bit synth sounds that he's using on the track Season 2 Weight Loss, which odd title for a track. Not sure where the inspiration was from that, but that one is really cool. You still, again, as I said, have songs with really cool hooks. Taste Back is one that I thought of, where it sounds like something that could have been on Harry's house if it had like a slightly different cloak over it from a production standpoint. Um, and you still get acoustic numbers on here, which is interesting. And I don't think they clash enough to make me dock points from the record for it. I think they definitely stand out from the other material, thinking about Coming Up Roses and Paint by Numbers. But I think they work really well, especially Coming Up Roses. I love the strings on that track. I think that's one of his most mature ballads that he's ever written. Um, so I think that works really well. Love some of the kind of the chord progressions and stuff on there. The ending track, Carla's song, I think is really cool. That has a sort of, it gives me As It Was vibes from the previous record, but if it was more like sedated, but like the rhythm, the pulse of it, I think is a little bit comparable. Yeah. Um, this is a record that seems to have some mixed reception so far. I think it's, if you go and rate your music, it's the lowest rated of the four records so far. People talking about that the songs aren't there. It sounds like Harry's bored, which for the record, I don't agree with that. I think I don't know. I think with this type of like very electronic heavy production where the synths are just going fucking wild and you've got effects and you've got samples and shit all over the place. Like there's already enough going on to where I think sometimes all the singer needs to do is just kind of glide over what they're doing, and that works perfectly. I don't think you necessarily need to have a super, over the top vocal performance in addition to that. So I don't buy that the vocal performances don't work. I think it works pretty damn well here. Um, yeah, I think more familiarity with this record might cause it to go up in my rankings. I certainly was thinking about having it a little bit higher because I do think this may be the best produced album in his catalog. It's a lot of stuff that I'm really, really impressed by. But yeah, I think for right now, number three makes sense. I think there's a lot to like here. I don't know how many of these tracks would go in the top tier in my Harry Styles song list, but I do think there's a lot to like. And I don't think this record ever gets like, I don't think there's any low points in this record compared to like the debut or even I would argue the two records I have above it, I think have more tangible low points. And I don't think this one has any. I think this is just really consistent, really sharp, a record that works really well if you're listening all the way through. And yeah, I like it a lot. Kiss All the Time, period, disco, comma, occasionally, period. My number three. And for the record, from a star rating standpoint, I also have all of these at 4 stars. Um, some I think the top two I think could be in contention for like a bump at some point to like a 4.5, but they're all, like I said, pretty close, just to give people perspective on that.
Button. All right, there we go. Goodness gracious. But I think it's so weird because it's like I don't even think his albums are too long necessarily. It's not like I want anything trimmed. It's just there's something that's not quite pushing it to like the upper echelon. However, we have the same top two as my number three is the self-titled, which I also thought was going to be my winner going into this. So fuck us, I guess. We really screwed the pooch on that one. This is a bit of a crazy album whenever it released. You do obviously point out everybody thought One Direction had potential and whatnot, but also everybody was tired of One Direction because it was 2017 by the time this released. And Zayn put out solo work that wasn't very good. So Harry really had to come in and lift the baton. I have no idea if any of the others put out solo work. They may have. I don't know. I don't care. But Yes, Harry Styles. I think Meet Me in the Hallway is an incredibly beautiful opener. I think it really sets you up for what you're going to get. You get a bit of the rock motif, you get the more softer ballads, the more fun and unique lyricism that you get from him. I think it's a great way to like lead you into Sign of the Times, which I agree. I'm very 50-50 on this song. I'm more leaning into the like it camp a good bit as of now, but as you stated, it shuffles around. Definitely style over substance, but Harry's last name is Styles, so he's earned that, I guess. Caroline is fun. I think Two Ghosts is beautiful. Sweet Creature might be my favorite on here. I think that's a really lovely cut. Only Angel is probably my favorite overt rocker. I think that's just got a good groove, good rhythm, good vibe to it. Fun time. Kiwi as well, I agree. Kiwi can be very take it or leave it. I think Kiwi is a lot of fun, but I do not blame anybody at all for not being partial to Kiwi, thinking it's a bit over the top. I'm not crazy about Ever Since New York personally. I think it's a tad too sedated, in my opinion, in comparison to other cuts, to where it just sort of fades, especially in that back half, which, no, the back half isn't as ballad heavy as I would have initially thought. I maybe more so like the sort of groove, the rhythm that you have building up before it, and it just sort of harshly brings you in. I think maybe swapping in Woman would have worked a bit better for me because I think Woman's great. I love that chorus. I think it's so fun, so wacky. The la 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 with like the guitars and the instrument with the guitars in the background. I just think it's a lot of fun. He's having a good time. And From the Dining Table is a solid closer. I I don't have much to complain about. I just think it's consistently solid work. It's really enjoyable, incredibly well produced. But I mean, I will say this. I think that there is one record that stands head and shoulders above the rest production wise. I was notably taken aback by how good I thought that it was, which if you know things about me, we will get there at number one. So number three, self-titled Harry Styles.
I didn't mention Meet Me in the Hallway or From the Dining Table, but I like both of those songs a lot too. Something we probably should have talked about at the top that I'm going to ask you about now at kind of the halfway point is what is your One Direction take? Like, what do you think of
That's fine.
their songs? Have you heard any records in full? What do you think?
Um, I have actually surprisingly heard records in full. I can't remember the names at this point. I think it was Midnight Marauders and One Day or some shit. I don't know. They
Midnight Marauders is a Tribe Called Quest record, so I wish they were that interesting.
no, listen,
Midnight Memories, I think. Yeah,
they were really slept on in their time, truthfully. Midnight Marauders, great record.
yeah.
I don't remember what I listened to. I just remember them being fine and having fun singles. That's kind of where I'm at. I think the singles are pretty fun for what they are, and I just haven't explored much past.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I have nostalgia for some of their singles, like What Makes You Beautiful, well, Story of My Life, stuff like that. I've heard one of their records. I think um it might have been Take Me Home that I've heard. Either that one or potentially Midnight Memories. I might have heard that one. Um and yeah, I don't know. I think they are not as interesting compared to like the peak of the 90s, early 2000s boy band stuff. Like I've been listening to more Ed Sync lately, and my God, those motherfuckers were talented. They were so good. Um, and I don't think 1D was at that level. But yeah, I think at their peak, like, the songs they were writing, really solid early 2010s bubblegum pop for sure. Um, I've not checked out much of their solo work. I heard that Zayn record, I think not long after it came out. I don't remember anything about it. It just kind of went in one ear and out the other, but maybe I'd like it if I went back to it. Um, I've not heard anything else from anybody else though. I think they've all put out solo records at this point, but I haven't checked them out. So no disrespect intended and RIP Liam, of course. Um, but yeah, one other thing I should mention too before getting to my number two is I think one of the other critiques about this most recent Harry record is from a lyrical standpoint, and people complaining about how it's lyrically, I think, one of the least compelling or least fleshed out things he's ever done. And there's definitely some kind of odd lines here and there. Like the one that I've seen people talk about is from the waiting game. Do you tantalize and titillate knowing it won't make the grade? Very strange combination of uh, verbs there. Um, which fair enough. But the other thing to keep in mind is that even the best Harry Styles material, I honestly could not give a shit less about the lyrics. I like, I think even when he's going for something that is more sincere and true to who he is and what he's experiencing, he's not trying to write something generic. At the end of the day, it's like he's writing songs and albums about like his relationship with like a French supermodel, right? Like it is so just far beyond anything that is relatable to us common folk of average appearance and everything else, right? So even the stuff that I really, really like here, like the words are just almost mouth noises at this point. It's very, very, out of sight, out of mind. I'm just here for the tunes. And speaking of tunes, let's talk about my number two, 2019's Fine Line. Um, yeah, this is an album I think I kind of underrated when I first heard it. I think I underrated both the top two records when I first heard them around the time of their release. But yeah, Fine Line takes a lot of what the debut record has and hones it and sharpens it and also just takes it into new directions. This is clearly, I think, an attempt to lean into the gloss and sheen of expensive pop production. We're throwing out any of these notions that Harry Styles can be this DIY artist or whatever with like a rock band. Like, cool, he can rock out, but like he's not, you know, again, he's not Jeff Buckley. That's not his thing. So he's leaning into the pop star thing, and it works really fucking well here. You start off on a really high note with Golden. Immediately, I think this is a better, more polished, more complete upbeat tune than anything on the first record. Really love the kind of focus on the highs in the mix here between those like upper register guitars, the backing vocals that are layered, and the key sounds. It sounds bright and it sounds vibrant. And I'm like, yes, I want more of this. And so because of that, I have the goodwill to ignore the things that I don't like about Watermelon Sugar. I do kind of like the song, but admittedly, it's far from a favorite on the record. Um, as a song, it actually might be my least favorite on the record, but the brass and the bass performance from Pino Palladino just make that song pop. It's a vibe, it's a triumph of production, even if the song itself is kind of nothing. Lights Up, kind of an odd track. The song doesn't really have a strong like central hook, so it kind of oscillates between a couple of different sections without like a cathartic chorus, but I really like it. If we're talking about the main singles on the record, Adore You is my top pick, one of the best Harry Styles songs ever. Super funky. The synth bass line is really awesome. Love the little like lead lines that give almost like city pop vibes, which we'll come back to. Um, yeah, the record starts off really well. And the song Cherry, which not a lot of people talk about, maybe my favorite song on the record and a contender for my favorite Harry Styles song. Um, and I think some of that is because like sonically it feels like a sequel to Ever Since New York. It's a similar type of like vibe and atmosphere that I really love. It's also like one of the only Harry Styles songs that like I have a little bit of like an emotional connection to just because of like how I heard it or when I heard it, that sort of thing. So yeah, I have a soft spot for that one. Really, really like it. Um, there's only a couple of tracks that I'm not super, super keen on here. Like immediately after Cherry, you get Falling. I think that kind of kills the momentum of the record. It's very dirge like, um, kind of almost like Sign of the Times demo version in a way. Like there's not as much going on production wise, and so I don't think the song really holds up to it. So probably my least favorite. Also, not super into Treat People with Kindness. It's got a cool groove to it, but I'm not into the backing vocals that are like such a central part of the hook. Doesn't really work for me. But apart from that, I mean, there's still a ton of gems on the second half of this record. Um, You have She. Oh my God, what a song. That, like, the guitar stabs on that one, that raspy falsetto that Styles is doing. They've got some, like, effects on his voice too to really enhance that awesome, awesome atmosphere. Probably his best, like, straight up attempt at like a rock song, I think. Sunflower Volume 6. Shout out to Greg Kirsten on the production there. Some really cool ass like dueling guitars and electric sitars kind of in the second half. There's like ear candy moments left and right where you'll just hear some little riff that's like hard panned to one channel and you don't really have a lot of time to focus on it before it hits you with something else. And that's the type of like really high end production that helps these Harry Styles records stand out from a lot of other pop material. Again, I think the core songs, to kind of speak to a point you were making earlier, I think the core songs don't necessarily hit and resonate for me, anyways, in the way that, let's say, Lord's best material might, or Taylor Swift's best material might, or even Gaga, honestly. Um, but boy, it is so consistently well crafted. Apart from like moments on the debut record, I would say. And I'm and Styles is someone who, like, if you give him just a immaculately created track, he's always going to lift it up because he's charismatic enough. He's a good enough vocalist to do so. And especially on Fine Line and my number one record, I think that's really, really true. Um, Canyon Moon is awesome. That's like him doing like a 2010s revamp of the Laurel Canyon sound. You got that dulcimer sound inspired by Joni Mitchell. And you talked about Bon Iver a little bit with the most recent record. I definitely hear that on the title track of Fine Line, with like that massive soundscape with these like repeated vocal chants and the massive brass and those layered like falsetto harmonies. Like, it's a buildup that feels straight out of like I Comma I or something like that. And it really, really works. So yeah, it's a really strong record, and I think the reason it's my number two and not my number one, it was actually my number one this morning until I did a couple of re-listens, but I think the two moments that I'm not as keen on are what drop it down a little bit for me because my number one record doesn't really have a song that I'm like, no, I don't really like this in the same way. Although I would say Fine Line probably has higher highs than my number one does. So yeah, Fine Line. Awesome fucking record that I definitely underrated when I first heard it. And yeah, not going to do that anymore. It's my number two. It rocks.
It is crazy quite how fucking baffled by this catalog we were to essentially end up having the exact same opinion on every single album. As my number two is Fine Line. I also was not a fan of Fine Line when I first heard it, and it took me a little bit to get fully into it. I am now at a point to where I think this is probably like I hate to bring up objectivity, but this is probably like his best album if I had to pick one. I think it's the one that best morphs all of his different sounds and styles that he's experimented with at this point. But to get into it, this one has the tunes. It's got the bops. Golden, sensational opener. It pretty much it tightens everything up. You get this great pop sensibility that isn't inherently there on a lot of the debut songs. I really do think a great way to describe this is him going from the 70s to the 80s. This is things getting more extravagant. It's getting more out there, more wacky in what he's going for. And as such, he's able to be more free, more out there with his image. Perfectly exemplified with the single Adore You, which I will say, this might be one of the biggest examples of I do not care about the verses at all. Give me that chorus. It is so good. It's so infectious. But it's like I could not give less of a shit about the actual lyrics, but his vocal cadence and delivery through the verses is just what brings it all together. It's so good. He could literally be singing Goo Goo Gaga. I don't care. He's good at it. He's good at Goo Goo Gaga. Who cares? Lights Up, I think, is a bit strange, but I think it's fun. Cherry's a good one. I like Falling a decent bit, and To Be So Lonely. I think that this record absolutely shines. And then you get to She. Holy fucking fuck, She. absolutely trounces every song before it. I'm sorry. And I like every song before it, but she has been a goddamn staple in my music listening since 2019 at this point. That song is out of this goddamn world, which might present me to the reason why I think it is number two. Why are there three different 6-minute songs on this album? Which, mind you, props to Harry for doing that. You won't see a modern pop artist do stuff like that. However, it's probably for a reason. I mean, it feels a bit long, and this is only a 40-minute album, but it feels long because of the nature of your songs being longer. And I do kind of concede I'm not big on treat people with kindness. I think it gets a bit tacky, a bit sort of trite in what it goes for. However, it is produced very well, like all of his albums are, as we've stated. Canyon Moon, I think, is lovely, and Fine Line is an incredibly interesting closer. Another one of the long tracks, but I think it pays off pretty well. I don't have much to complain about. I think it's a very, very strong record. However, I think Harry's House sounds so fucking good, man. That production is out of this goddamn world. So, anyways, Harry's House now.
Indeed. One quick thing about Adore You again, though, because you kind of mentioned like, you're there, you're in it for the chorus as you're not in it for like the verses or anything. I love
Yep.
how the verses from a production standpoint really give the chorus a chance to just like explode. Because like if you listen, I think especially
Like,
to like the first verse, like all the instruments and like his voice, it's all kind of like in the center of the mix. Like you're not really hearing much in like the right channel or the left channel. It's all kind of, it's not mono, but it's like almost kind of that vibe. And then when the chorus comes in and you have those like the like backing vocals and stuff, those are like they're not hard pan, I don't think, but they're like you're using the stereo space all of a sudden. So all of a sudden it's like a chorus of Harry Styles just like it like apparated around you and just started like singing angelic voices to the heavens or something like that. It's a really cool bit of like sound design and just one of the just so many things about like modern production and production in general that just fascinate me and I love so much. Um, but yeah, Harry's House, like you said, my number one, your number one. And here I was thinking going into this, so this is going to be my bottom because I remember not being super keen on this record when I first heard it. Um, I remember like I remember liking it enough, but thinking, yeah, this is a step down from the debut and from Fine Line. Maybe because it was a little bit like the sheen was extra sheeny this time, or like it was a little bit kind of silly for my tastes or something. I'm assuming that's the logic because it's been a couple of years since I first heard it. But yeah, coming back to it, I was like, yeah, this is kind of a weird as fuck record, but boy, does it work. Boy, does it work. Um, you have, so we mentioned like the city pop influence on some of these tracks, Adore You being one of them on a Fine Line. And it is way more present now on this record than before. For being a record that is very like heavily produced, like obviously this is something that has been touched up quite a lot. These synths sound straight out of the late 70s, early 80s. They sound very analog. They don't sound like digital, like they're a plug-in. And I think that's what produces some of like the real atmosphere. It feels authentic. Um, and to your point about Fine Line from earlier, about how Fine Line feels like it's Harry kind of stretching his wings. I think part of the appeal for Harry's House to me is that it's being a weird record still, it still feels like more focused. It feels like he has a central sound that he is going for in aggregate with a couple of small exceptions and is really going for it. Where Fine Line is kind of closer to the debut where it's basically like, hey, let's see what I can do. Look, I can do this and I can do that and that sort of thing. And that's not really what he's doing here. Um, Music for a sushi restaurant. What a weird opening track. And I'm all about it. I wasn't sure at first. I was like, man, this is odd, but on second and third listen, I was into it. There's these weird like dubstep like builds. It kind of gives me Mark Ronson vibes a little bit here. I just think it's really cool. Again, the lyrics, I'm sure they're stupid. I don't care. Do not care at all. Late Night Talking has some really cool kind of like vocoder vocal production work. That's one of the biggest hooks here. Grape Juice is really cool. There's a little like, I don't know, like a bass synth or something in the right channel that really propels the track forward. Really like that one. As It Was is a triumph. You know, we talk about this record giving late 70s, early 80s vibes, which it does. And that doesn't sound special in isolation because, every pop artist under the sun has tried to explore that sound in the last 10 to 15 years. But As It Was is a triumph in that regard. Like, for as much as artists in the last couple of decades have thrown back to these textures, revitalized some of these sounds, there aren't a lot of songs that capture the vibe this successfully. And I don't know how much of it is like choice of synthesizers that they're using, how much of it is like the production of like the voice. There's a weird kind of like, I don't know, watery like reverb sound. I don't even know how to describe it really. But like it sounds like it's levitating and hovering in the air in a way that reminds me of some of those great like late 70s, early 80s pop songs. Maybe it's the rhythm, the underlying rhythm, like the frenetic keyboards that sound like Take On Me or something like that. That's the track that I think of the most that it's trying to evoke. But boy, it works. Like it is so well done. And even when I was not into the record in my first listen, this was a clear standout. Excellent song. And yeah, like I said, I mean this record really never there's no like tangible low points or points that I don't like on here. Um the There are a couple of moments where it goes into more stripped back territory still, but kind of like, you know, you know, kiss all night, disco occasionally or whatever, like it doesn't take me out of the vibe of the record. Like I think about something like Little Freak, like it's more stripped back than most of the other tracks on the record. But even then, like you have this padding under everything, these like electric guitars that have been drenched in reverb that it keeps you connected to everything else sonically. It gives you that baseline to where you're like, okay, I'm still listening to the same record. It's not super jarring. I'm still kind of in this very produced, kind of hazy sounding album. And I really like that. Um, and that works well. Matilda, another one, that might be I don't think I could say it's his best acoustic ballad because I love the ballads on the debut record so much, but I think that is it might be his best from a songwriting standpoint. I think it's certainly a step forward. I really love the great usage of like the piano and like the second half of the track. The song goes through some like really cool progressions. So yeah, I think he's good for at least one knockout ballad a record here, and this is definitely the one from Harry's House for me. Cinema, super cool, funky bop. Love that one. Love the high notes that Harry's trying to go for at the end. Again, the guy can sing his ass off. And when I say he's not Jeff Buckley, that's not a diss. He's a really fucking good singer. So you really hear that in moments here. And I do hope that in future records we do get to hear kind of more of him kind of letting loose like this. Um, and yeah, a couple more standout tracks. Daydreaming, Pino Palladino on the bass again. Love that really like trebly ass bass sound, very like Fender jazz like. That's like my preferred bass sound in general. Like I don't know, it just sounds really cool and it really propels that song in a cool way. And Love of My Life, the closer, very unsettling, very unsettling. 'Cause this is a record. I don't necessarily know if all these songs have been in major keys or anything like that, but this song is very clearly in a minor key. It is very dissonant, very kind of dark and foreboding, and it ends the record on a fittingly bizarre note, I think. Yeah, it's really well constructed. It's well sequenced. I think most of my least favorite songs are probably on the back half of the record, but even still, I think it flows really well. You don't have the same like 6 minute long songs that you called out in Fine Line, which I agree. I think sometimes I'm not always in the mood for that. And yeah, it's just top tier pop production. Again, even if I these songs don't speak to me in the way that maybe like some of Taylor Swift's best songs do, like even still, like this might not be a 1989, but this might be like a Midnight's. This might be like a Lover for me in terms of like how much I like it. So I think it's super well crafted. I think Harry Styles is a mega talent as a vocalist and as a performer. And yeah, I think at least for the time being, this is, in my eyes at least, I think his shining artistic statement. Harry's House, the curiously titled Harry's House, very unassuming title, very unassuming album cover, but a really, really great album that I'm really, really glad I got to re-listen to for this. Yeah,
Really just unassuming record all across the board. When it released, people seem to be disappointed. I don't think it's really been long enough for there to be like a quote unquote appraisal for it at this point. But just dropping all pretense, all things going beyond it. This is number one strictly due to production for me. I think this album sounds out of this goddamn world. It's just so distinct to me. I think this record is super poppy, it's super fun, it's super upfront in what it is going for, but it's super subtle in what it does as well. There are like these really sparse like acoustic tracks that you get at certain points, little key points that you were pointing out as well. There's just so many minor little touches to these songs that if you really just sit down, pretty good headphones, and just really get immersed within the soundscape, it is just crazy how good this record sounds, I feel. And within that, I think this is his most consistent set of songs for sure. Music for a Sushi Restaurant, I know, is probably his most like controversial hit. I know there are people that really don't like it. There are people that really like it. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm a sucker for a big horn drop whenever, and he can just sell literal gobblegook. It doesn't matter what he's saying; he'll sell it. It's good. Beyond that, Late Night Talking is sensational. I think Grape Juice is as well lovely. I will. I'll stake the claim here. I think As It Was is going to, at the very least, be looked at as like a top five pop song of the decade by the time things are said and done. Mainstream wise, I think by far. I'd say for me, it's number one right now. Chapel's getting close. Give her the 5 years she needs to put out the new album, and then we'll get there. But as for now, Harry can hold on to the throne. I just think that this record is so consistent. Daylight is a really fun one. I You pointed out how Little Freak is a lot more down tempo. It's different from everything he was going for before, but I think that that works really well for the pacing. The only track I'm personally not crazy about is Daydreaming, which, funnily enough, was one of the ones that I actually did like the first time that I heard the record. So, man, I just can't get anything right this week. It's so fun. I like what you pointed out about Love of My Life. Very strange closer, I think, with just how starkly different it is from a lot of the rest of the record, but it ends things at a very good moving point as well. What you said before, I think Matilda is probably his best written song. I think it's absolutely stunning. And just the performance, once again, is fantastic. And that's really all that you need for Harry Styles. You need a great performance, you need a solid track, and you need this great fucking production. It's what brings it all together. It's what makes all his stuff so consistently engaging and memorable as it is. I think we got a good run here of records, and I hope that we continue to get more. Number one, Harry's House.
yeah. No, I agree. And I think one of the most impressive things about this evolution is that it's not like he's rotating producers from album to album. It's the same producers for every single record. Was it Kid Harpoon and Tyler Johnson? They've been there since the debut record. I know the debut had someone else, I think, on the boards as well for some of it, but he's working with the same people, and I think that speaks to certainly their versatility as producers, but I think it also speaks to Harry's strengthened vision from an artistic standpoint, because it could be very easy for him to, you know, say, okay, we can just do the same type of thing. We can recycle this, we can recycle that. But I don't think we have these massive changes in sound from record to record without him having a very clear vision of what he wants to do, how he wants his records to sound. Um, so I think that's a point in his favor, and it's a point in his producer's favor for how much they've been able to change things. And again, I don't want to say it's like an artistic reinvention from album to album. It's still like recognizable. We're not talking about like not quite David Bowie level or anything like that, but it's still different and distinct from record to record. And I think that's really impressive.
Sure, absolutely. I think we're maybe getting to a point to where things are not quite as stark as they were before in difference, but like there's still a noticeable change between Harry's house and the new one for sure.
I think it's a big change. Yeah. I think it's like Harry's house still has a very like, you know, analog, like, you really feel like the high frequencies popping in the mix and that sort of thing. And it's still like very bright. And the new record, Kiss Me All the Time or whatever, um, it's I think it's like a little bit darker. Again, I think it's like there's also a difference in songwriting, I think, between the two records too, where it feels like Harry's House is still something where you could repackage that in a more like stripped back manner, and you could still probably have a pop hit with a lot of those songs. And I think for the new record, I don't think that works. I think those are songs that fit the production style and fit the vibe that they were built in and were composed in. They're meant to be club bangers. Um, and so, yeah, I think there's, again, not a massive difference, maybe, but I do think it's still a pretty tangible and in some ways quite a stark difference from record to record, which, again, you know, to have that difference and have both of those records still be produced very well and very competently is super impressive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any closing remarks? Or do you think we've got the point across here?
Um, yeah, I don't know. Harry Styles is good, and I think maybe there are some people who are disappointed that he didn't go down more of the rock direction like he did on the first record. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who were disappointed in that, but I don't know. I think he's found his niche. I think what he does is really impressive. And I don't think he's just like some vessel from where like other songwriters or other producers or whatever are putting their ideas into. I think, as I keep saying, he has a very clear idea of how he wants his records to sound. I think he's clearly leading the charge and very invested in what he's doing. And in that sense, I mean, not that we're exactly living in a golden age of male pop stars or anything like that, but I don't know if there's another one who I would say is we're operating at his level right now. Even my beloved Ed Sheeran, whenever and one day maybe we'll get to Ed Sheeran and we can hash that out, in depth. But even my beloved Ed Sheeran is not working at this level and hasn't for some time, I don't think. So yeah, just props to Harry, mad respect. Um, Lots of great music.
I mean, truthfully, I'm trying to think it through. Is there like a single genuinely mainstream male pop artist that's even within his orbit of quality? Like, I'm really trying to think, and I'm struggling.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure people would give arguments for different people, but I don't know. I'm more partial to Post Malone than some people. I don't think he's operating at this level and or ever has. Um, I I don't think Bieber is. People keep saying Bieber's last couple of records are good. I guess I have not checked them out. What I've heard, I've not been
I
super impressed by.
I don't think I got around to his newest one, but I did hear the McGee project, which people were really hyping up, and he worked with Bieber on that, and I wasn't crazy on it personally, so
Mhm. Yeah,
it is what it is though.
yeah. Oh, Benson Boone. Benson, right? I'm sure we can all agree that Benson Boone is like the most generationally talented and visionary pop star of this day and age.
Genuinely think somehow through this discussion, Benson Boone is my favorite artist that has been brought up, which maybe speaks to the quality of modern male pop singers, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, that was Harry Styles. Hope you enjoyed.